Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sin Permiso, a Latina lifestyle podcast. We have un macho aquí con nosotros hoy día. I am super happy. I got my boy Armando Tam here. Armando, thank you for visiting with us today.
I think it's cool that I've seen you come up the ranks and I'm here and I love your purpose.
Thank you, Armando. You are one of the people that inspired me to do a podcast because it's really important para que los Latinos sepan que si se puede, that we all have examples out there. There's people that have been able to come up, right? This in respect to the mindset, the Latino mindset that we grew up with, right? Que no hablamos de dinero, que no se habla de esto, que lo otro, que sí se puede, que sí hay gente que supera muchas de las cosas que you think you're not going to be able to, the obstacles that are there, the education that we don't get. No se habla del dinero. We don't talk about a lot of things in the Latino growing up. So I love to have people here that have fabulous stories, because it's all about having the story and talking about how they grew up. Armando, so tell me a little bit, because, they can see that you're very exotic looking, right? Tell us a little bit about who you are, how you grew up, your background.
So I'm Chinese Nicaraguan. Padre chino nicaragüense, nací en Nicaragua, vine aquí a los 5 años. Desde joven, me crié en los Estados Unidos with a hardworking family. And we can go different ways, but I was listening to the thrust of Sin Permiso about how we don't talk about these things and there's certain behavior tactics or dinero que, like my father. I asked my dad, how could I be the best son and what do I need to achieve? And he says, yo lo que quiero es que seas humilde. My mother was educated, my father was not. And I remember my grandma saying, hijo, que en paz descanse, my mamá Ana, she was like everything to me. And she says to me, el hombre que manda, pero nunca le falta respeto a su mujer. And I think, okay, my mom was educated, she had a degree, she came to the United States, but my father had limited education, but he was a provider for the family. And my father never took that for granted. He loved and treated my mom with full respect. And if you have to nudge who's the decision maker, it's always going to be a little bit of my father, but a lot of influence from my mother. And so I think that's who shaped me who I am today. I have Mama Tia, Mama Ana, and my mom. So I was raised by 3 ladies. So what's unique about me is I rarely use the word bitch. I can't even say it.
Te enseñaron respeto.
Yeah, I think es una falta de respeto. So anyway, I'm Chinese Nicaraguan, best of both worlds, fried rice and beans. So anyways, that's who I am.
What's the name of that? Isn't there a restaurant in New York that do...
So there's a whole bunch back in the days, because before communism, a lot of Chinese migrated to different parts of the world. And so in New York specifically, it was really big in the 50s, 60s, 70s, where there would be Chinese Cuban, Chinese Venezuelans, Chinese Dominicans, Chino Nicaragüenses. So yeah, La Caridad, which closed down, so inspired me to kind of seguir esa tradición. And then there's La Dinastía, which is Upper West Side, which is Chinese Dominicans.
That's awesome. By the way, the Chinese food in Colombia sucks.
Well, thank you for the Nicaraguense side, because I'm a 6'3", Chino Latino que sale guapo. No, I'm just kidding.
No, aparte de guapo, demasiado inteligente y innovador. Armando, so when you were growing up, back to, being raised by your tías y te mostraron mucho respeto, as far as when it was time to go to school, how did that pan out? Because obviously your mom, she was more educated than your dad. So where was the route there for college, trabajar o estudiar? ¿Cómo fue?
So it was actually a disappointment to my mother, because she wanted me to go to college, she wanted me to go to school. But I got, life takes you into a journey. So I ended up getting a job at Price Club Costco at a young age. And I remember looking back now that you were making enough money back then, but it wasn't enough to make a living in the future. And so I got caught up in that. So I never finished school or went to university. And that's something my mother probably will always pick on me, que no terminaste los estudios, right? But I was a hard worker. My mom came here, had an executive job because she had a degree, but she also had a catering gig. Ella siempre estaba ahorrando para mañana, building that wealth. My father, 2 jobs. He had a W-2, he had a contracting business. So I grew up in that mentality, no free handouts. Now that I'm older and, the political divide, yo le pregunté, papi, nosotros usamos eso, assistance, anything like that? He goes, no, venimos aquí sin nada y yo jamás nosotros pedimos ninguna ayuda del gobierno.
Well, Armando, you see, that's a common thread, though, that I'm seeing when I talk to people with respect to school. A lot of us, and I'll tell you, in my particular case, you know, I was in school, I was in college paying my own way, and I got an associate's degree, but I didn't go back because I started making too much money. And I feel that sometimes the Latinos, we look at that as a negative thing, not having finished school. But many of the most successful people that I know never finished.
And you know what that key is, though? Now, speaking to you about that, is mentorship. It's who impacts your life, right? So I did a little tour. I did the entertainment world. I performed with Will Smith.
Ooh, tell us about that. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
well, I remember I just loved dancing, and I was in martial arts. So my father owned karateka, and he put us in martial arts. And one thing that I got from him was to be the best at whatever you do. So it wasn't about being in it. We had to go to tournaments. Aquí teníamos que ganar, you know? And so I take that same mentality when it goes to business or dancing. And so then I wanted to learn dancing, and then I want to be the best. And we took it to the top. But that formed a mindset, you know? And so, yeah, I performed. I used to teach salsa dancing. I tried like a business. I wasn't just a dancer. I ran nightclubs. I was a promoter. I was making cash business. I had a W-2 business. And so we took that, and then I got into real estate. And that work ethic, you know, where it doesn't matter what you have in this country, you can make something with hard work. And in real estate, I decided to give it all. And me fue bien. But it wasn't a defining moment until there was a defining moment when I ran into Gary Acosta, you know, and to spend time with someone like him, you know, it kind of bailed me out of not going to college or pursue something in finance, or I used to want to be an attorney, you know. And so when you have a business mentor, you have to be present and you have to be humble to accept that you don't know shit. Mm-hmm. You have to be the brokest and dumbest in the room. And so that was a defining moment. So if anyone compares, you know, my opportunity, everyone should go to school. But I think they should go to school with a purpose and be present to meeting mentors. And so that was a defining moment where I've learned that's my education, is mentors like Gary.
That's true, Armando. We all have our defining moments, and mentors coming in at an early age. This has been, like, again, another common thread that I found with people that I talk to. For instance, you know, my first mentor at 19 years old was the broker owner of my office. And he said to me, Peggy, you're never going to make money just selling homes to people. You have to buy homes. So at 19-year-old, when you're told this, at 21, I had my first home, which I still have today. So it's huge, which you just hit the nail on the head about. Mentorship will save us all money from a college education, but only if we are focused and we continue to learn. Armando, so what I find interesting, though, about you is you didn't just, you know, your story started in real estate, but it definitely doesn't end there. What other ventures have you been involved with?
Well, I think as you grow to a certain age in your life, you realize what your calling could be, or you realize your capability. And so because I came from the dance world, I came from the food world, and then, you know, obviously with organizations like NAHREP in the real estate career industry, it's really success has more commonalities than people think, right? It's hard work, ambitious, ethic, the ability to execute, and dream big, putting together, right? You've had restaurants and you've had real estate, and you're gonna look back and say, I can conquer so many different things because it was 3 qualities that you really executed on. And
Correct.
So I want to be as big as I can for the culture when it comes to food and business, that they can be equally parallel and just as important. Because when people say, oh, don't follow money, follow your passion. Yeah, but they should tell you that at 5-7 years, you're going to have kids, a mortgage, or responsibilities, or generational wealth. You didn't inherit wealth. That's your responsibility. That's our responsibility. So, you know, I admire what they say, don't chase the money, chase the passion. But I say, hold up. In our culture, podemos hablar las dos cosas la misma vez.
Sí.
So I'm not going to be a cook because we're in business. And so I don't know if I can create the wealth I can, but I can be in the food business. You know, I can educate our people que hablamos 2 idiomas and tenemos más cosas en común que diferencias in this political, you know, divide or society divide. So I think that anything you love, this country provides that opportunity, but you got to think big. Because if I thought, let me go back to a, you know, 8-week course of culinary school and, you know, what the chefs make, it's a lot of work. Shout out to all the chefs and cooks out there. I'm not that strong.
That's almost slavery.
And then you're in real estate and you make the money, right, for the kind of effort and the barrier entry to get in. Entonces, if you're stuck in one mindset and not listening to other people who are making money, que son buena gente, then you're not going to know what you're capable of. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that I do want to change the culture now, to write the narrative El Latino de hoy. I don't like the word no Latinos. I think the narrative today is we're rocking Louis, we're rocking sneakers. We can have the carne asada at home, but we'll go get the, sashimi at Nobu. Y la gente piensa que no somos así.
You know what it is? We've been boxed in, obviously. The Latinos always boxed in, but we are everything we want to be nowadays. And look at you. You didn't put all your eggs in one basket. It almost feels like you didn't want to put all your eggs in one basket because you wanted to see, like you just said, what you were capable. And you would like to reinvent yourself.
You're pulling something out of me that very few people do, and I talk to a lot of people, so credit to you, shout out to that. The reason I do these things is because I don't want to live life with regrets. You know what I mean? If the worst thing you can do is probably live your life with regret, because it impacts everybody, So yeah, no, I definitely, what drives me is the opportunity. And when there's a lack of something, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Right now you think Latino, you celebrate once a year for Hispanic Heritage Month. Or they have the corny ass montuno on the piano. No, what's wrong? We listen to Fat Joe. We listen to Diddy. We listen to Jay-Z. And so I think there's opportunity. When people get mad and they talk shit on social media, I'm okay with it, because I've learned that in chaos comes opportunity. And so let me be that one.
So we talk about disruptors, right? And that's what I call disrupting, right? Sending a different message of we are this. We're not Latinos just the usual, the arepas, the tacos, the hard worker. We don't, work cleaning up the mall or work, having the food truck. We can be everything, right? There's all shades of us. There's all colors of us. I mean, look at you. Look how different you are. I mean, we can be anything that we want to be.
What do you think prevents people?
The mindset, what we're talking about, what they don't learn growing up from their parents.
So you were lucky at 19 having a mentor. I was fortunate with my mentors. So how does someone be present to find that mentor or that defining moment?
So they educate themselves.
Okay.
And when I say educate themselves, listen, all you have to do is open your phone, start following people. There's plenty of motivation on that 3x4, apparatus that you call a cell phone. There's people that are out there doing things that you want to do. So what about them? Follow them, watch them, right? I want to be better at social media. 3 years ago, there was a guy out of Los Angeles that started seeing what he did.
Yeah.
And then you know what? You don't follow them. You don't become them. You brand yourself. You utilize what
social
you see.
media is 100% good. Of course, everything in moderation.
Of course.
I didn't get a chance to read books. All my friends who are intelligent read books. Unfortunately, I don't read books. My book of education is social media. It's leaders. It's who you follow. I think, you know what? Let me say this. People say your net worth should look like your network. I'm going to say who defines you is who you follow on social media.
True.
So if everyone watching out there, you're following some hoochies, you better unfollow them. It's a reflection of who you are.
So I don't mean to get a little gray or sad, but you brought up something earlier that resonated with me. You said, who wants to live with regrets? I had the fortune or the misfortune of seeing my dad a couple years ago pass away from COVID, literally on Zoom, as I watched him and all my brothers and sisters who he basically abandoned after 4 years. Each one of us, it was like the common theme, and him being there with the regrets, and we basically having to tell him, that we forgave him. So I was able to see what regret looked like, right? Staring it in the eye on a camera. So that resonated with me, Armando, that people who are listening to this today, and you're a perfect example, try it all, dabble in it. Do what you want to do. If there's someone that you're sitting there and you're thinking, and you're in your 9 to 5, what would you tell people right now listening that are in their 9 to 5, that have been there for, no sé, como 12, 13, 14 años haciendo lo mismo? Y tienen miedo, ¿no? Porque eso es lo que los Latinos, we have that fear, right?
You got to look in the mirror and you got to ask yourself a question. Am I happy? Because you can lie to people, you can lie on social, but you can't lie to yourself. So I'm hard on myself. As much as people think I achieve and I don't like to be busy, I'd rather be productive, I look in the mirror every morning. And I look at the way I look at the night before what I did. If you look at my social, I always end it with something positive or bendecido, dele agradecido. So I think you gotta look in the mirror and say, are you happy? But you have to be upfront with yourself. My cousin's a recovering addict. And I remember she told me, before you get better, you have to be broken down, and that's so deep. So I can't be a come mierda or gente fea to myself, because I'm only lying to myself. And so that's what I suggest everyone should do, is look in the mirror and truly say, am I happy? And then the next thing you got to do is find out, Google most passionate careers, most profitable careers that don't require an education, and see if you like any of those 15 or 20. And then thirdly, our next is look at what you love to do, because you never know, once you Google what you love to do, how much people are making in that industry. So I don't want to sound like, when my mom listens to this, or my dad, que ay, hijo, me está una vergüenza. No, it's not that. I think that you should say, I love to do this, but what kind of money does it make? You see what I'm saying? Because if you love to do something and it makes money, it's two worlds hitting parallel. Mm-hmm. And so it has to be. When I have kids one day, of course I'm going to tell them, go to school. But what makes you happy? Okay, hijo, quiere hacer esto. This is what it can happen. Because my parents didn't do it to me, because that wasn't their responsibility. They came into this country because of the war in Nicaragua. And my job is a relay of life. And so I think that's what you have to do, is look in the mirror, ask yourself if you're happy, and then figure out. And if you don't do that, unfortunately, you are where you are, or we are where we are, because of the decisions that we make.
Exactly. And I love the fact that you said be your own worst critic, because I thought that was just a female thing, right? Looking in the mirror and saying, estoy gordita, no me gusta esto, no me gusta lo otro.
I even lie to myself sometimes. I say I have thyroid on those fat days.
But you know what? That's a hardcore thing to do, because many of us, I've seen people stop being friends with people that tell them the truth to their face, because they just don't want to hear it. They don't want to face that reality. And you have to do it with yourself, like you said. Armando, so you have a clothing line that I think is pretty cool. I mean, I love your name. I was going to call my podcast that, but Bendecido, Bendecida. If people, want to check out your stuff, I mean, where can they go and check it out?
You can follow me on Instagram, Tito's Mundo. And that was created because I felt that there wasn't anything that was, one, cool, that looked like us. Two, but those are all words that my mom or my grandma or my aunt or my father raised me on. And so how fucking dope is it to just make that a mindset? Fashion of expression. Now you translate to the fashion world, I think trends go up and down, but the positive mindset or words that were influenced by your family, that shit doesn't ever go out of style.
No. And we need more positive words, because, obviously in our culture, there's a lot of, negative words here that they're used. And this is a constant reminder of that we are blessed, and that we are, fortunate to be where we are and have the opportunities, as first, second, or third generation. So fun fact about you, Armando, besides the fact that you're like 6 foot something in a hot chino, which I never thought I would find. If you had the opportunity to, have dinner with one person alive and un muerto, who would it be?
Alive would be Jay-Z. And I'm going to say the next one without crying. Probably my grandma. I don't think she ever got to see what I achieved.
Wow. You know what? There's something to be said for when we're proud of where we've come from, and especially when we did it ourselves and nobody helped us, and fortunately or unfortunately no había con qué. And when we go back and say, listen, yo lo alcancé. And I was fortunate that before he passed, back to my father, after seeing him at 37 years old, after not seeing him since I was 4, one of the most important things in my moments in my life was when he looked me in the eye and he said to me, and this is what would happen with you if you were able to, or when you go see her, because you will.
Yeah.
He looked me in the eye and he said, lo hiciste sola, sin mí. Eso es lo que más me ha ayudado, when he says to me, y yo no le ayudé en nada. I'm proud of you, Peg. So those moments, I mean, there's something to be said for that. To be growing up with adversity, because you know that adversity is the mother of invention. And this is what we do, right? We create ourselves, we recreate ourselves. We're all different, but at the end of the day, we're Latinos, y si se puede, y ya no tenemos que pedir permiso, ya sin permiso, and we are who we are. Armando, te quiero agradecer por dedicarme este tiempito, because, I know you're a busy guy. You're one of the people that, inspire me. You're a great example of si se puede, y Y gracias por compartir.
Nah, hey, when I met you and I got to know you, I said you got something there, and you're very passionate about all our stories, and you're very successful on and off the career.
So Armando, you and me, right? We had some dope ass Chinese food in New York a few years ago. That was an experience. I'm a foodie. You're a foodie. Not only that, you're like a chef and you have a book. Tell me about this book.
Yeah, the book is called It's a Vibe, and I didn't make it about Nicaraguan food, Chinese food, Thai food. I wanted to just, the happiest moments in my life were with family or entertaining family and friends. So it's called It's a Vibe, and we're pairing it with wine, and I chose Latino winemakers or winemakers of color.
Qué rico.
My co-author is a sommelier. He's African American, and we did 60-70% of everything was on iPhone. Because I wanted to show people, instead of complaining that I don't see myself on TV, like people say, oh, not enough Latino actors on TV. Well, fucking create a show, you know? And so there's no authors like us. Oh, then let's create it. And because you and I have that business mindset, you know, it's not easy, but it's possible. And so I got Latino winemakers. I sold to the publisher. I said, you got to roll with these cats. Try them first. Make sure they're good. And if they are good, then I did a fact check under 1,000 cases. It was boutique. It was supporting those who needed the support. En vez de quejarse, I just wanted to decide to do it. So shout out to everyone that was part of that, and my co-author Jayton for helping me with that. But we also had a musical playlist recommendations. You know,
Pairing with music as well.
Yeah,
That's
because
dope.
cooking is an experience. It's a vibe that I think that if more people decide to cook, the conversations that come over a table, you overcome this bullshit social media, political views or opinions. It's like you're una mesa, right? And I'm sure you can relate to that. With the happiest moments when you were a kid, wasn't it dinner every Sunday night or every night with your mom and dad and your brothers and sisters?
Exactly. Or when la familia, when la tía invited everybody over and everybody brought a different plate.
Yeah.
The potluck, la comida, that was the
Yo,
bomb.
if you when you get the book, I got a copy for you. You're gonna look at it, y casi me siento mal que no hay gringos ahí, you know. And I look at it, I was like, yo, because I really want to represent a book that represents culture and community. I didn't segregate. I didn't say let's do this. That's how I grew up. And it's not that we grew up like that. It's the lower income. So when it comes to non-Latinos speaking, lower income, we grew up poor.
It's our story.
And that's who are in those neighborhoods. So I'm like, you know what, let me make this book with Jayton and these winemakers and these musical playlists and say, this is us. And if we can do it, then more people should do it. And that's how we write the narrative. But music is very important. My mother is a beautiful singer. That's how I got into dancing, because she said, hijo, vos no puedes cantar. You know, dedicate al baile.
Pero bailabas.
Yeah, no, I do that. But, you know, I want my kids one day to sing, right? So music is important. So every dish has a playlist. It can go from hip hop to reggaeton to boleros to 90s. But I also know you love to sing. So Jose, I want you to do, which one by Jose? I like Almohada. Maybe you can end this with a verse from that, and it's like a live podcast serenata. Omar's a singer too, in the choir, but hey.
Solo está mi almohada